Oh yeah, yeah. If you want to, have a little pity party and feel crappy, do it. Who cares? Get it over with. What you find is if you go, hey, I feel
Right.
crappy and I hate this situation, your body goes, oh, okay, what's next? And then you get over it faster.
Yeah.
You just face the emotion, feel it, and they go, okay, okay. Now I'm gonna go make myself some macaroni and cheese and watch some Rick and Morty and not care about any of this.
Nice. Hell yeah.
You are listening to the Boundless Enigma Podcast with Sam Zins
and Ryan Mulcantine. On this podcast, we dive into the mind, reality, and existence itself to provide you with boundless ideas and insights. All right, welcome back to the Boundless Enigma Podcast. Today we have Rodney Norman on as our guest. He is a comedian, YouTuber, and social media influencer. And maybe Rodney, you could just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do. Like, what's your whole deal?
To be honest with you, I was just goofing off, and everybody started noticing. And now I have a social media career. That was pretty much the whole thing. Just the whole pandemic thing started, so I had nothing else to do, and so I thought, hey, I'll just make stupid videos like everybody else. And they started connecting with people, so it's been quite the adventure.
That's awesome.
So you call them stupid videos, but it seems like there's a lot of insight in those stupid videos. So like, do you consider yourself insightful or just stupid video oriented?
Well, kind of my whole thing is, I started out basically making fun of life coaches. Because they're all saying important things, but it's all the same stuff we've all heard over and over again, and so we're tired of hearing it. And then you're hearing it from some guy that's got a perfect tan, living in a mansion next to real expensive exotic cars, and it's like, what is this idiot got to know what I'm going through? And so I thought of it as sort of the every man's normal dude's life coach. And but he's based on, the character is really based on my grandfather, who was an alcoholic. He used to tell us weird stories when I was a kid, and so I envisioned my drunk grandfather as the world's worst life coach, and just started making the videos. And
Nice.
Yeah, and really, all I'm saying is stuff that we all already know, but saying it in a way that you actually, sit down, think about it, and go, oh, yeah, he's right. Life isn't that complicated. We try to make life more complicated, just so that we excuse ourselves from actually trying to do anything, because it's like, oh, it's so hard. It's so difficult. And no, it's not. It's not hard at all. It's very simple. You get a plan, you work it, you do things. That's it. There's no secret to it.
Yeah. And then you hear like all these social media gurus who come on and say like, this is the technique, this is the secret. You need to make sure you're grinding every day, pushing yourself to achieve all these goals. And then like, it's very contrasted to your message of just like, doesn't really matter. Just enjoy it.
Just do it.
Do what you enjoy. Sure, take good care of yourself, but you know what? If you want to take a day and just do nothing, that's fine too. That's good. You don't need to grind every day. You don't need to be pushing yourself for what? We're gonna run our bodies down and die at some point in time. And you want to spend your entire time, taking an ice bath and running up mountains? I mean, really? Is that's what life is about? That seems kind of boring and dumb.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd like to climb a mountain. I think that'd be cool to do before I die, but I think that can honestly be taken into the, who cares if you want to if you want to climb a mountain. But if you don't, then you should be happy just doing nothing too.
Look, Mount Everest is full of a lot of dead people and a lot of garbage that people left up there. I mean, It's kind of disappointing. Every person's
True.
gone up there. It's like, and you only get a few minutes. So you gotta, turn around and leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find your mentality very interesting. You say you got this mentality from your grandfather?
Yeah, he was a very, tell it like it is sort of fella. And he was
Okay.
very, very matter of fact. In fact, I remember sitting with him one time. I was a little kid and we were watching the news. There was a major earthquake and a whole bunch of people died. And he just looks at me and goes, "Well, they're the lucky ones. Now they got all the answers." And it just sort of
That's brutal.
It just sort of stuck with me. It's like, you know what? We're all going to die at some point in time. We don't know when. Might as well just enjoy ourselves while we're here.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I was watching one of your videos, and you said something about feeling crappy about stuff that's crappy doesn't help. And that resonated with me because, recently I felt like I was feeling crappy about stuff and that was crappy. But when you said that, it like in that moment, I realized I was like, wow, that's such a good point. And I feel like I watched that video yesterday. I feel like ever since then, I've kind of been keeping that in mind, and it really has helped to kind of keep myself in the present moment.
Yeah, like I said, we overcomplicate things. It's like, I tell people, it helps to have a positive attitude. And then people will say, well, having a positive attitude isn't going to change anything, blah, blah, blah. Well, having a crappy attitude isn't going to change anything either. At least if you're having a happy attitude, you're at least enjoying yourself while everything's going to hell.
Right. I think that's a difficult idea because it's like, do you try to force yourself to be happy when you're really not? Or like, what if you just are actually having just a shitty day? Like, I think it's perfectly okay to just let yourself feel shitty too.
Oh yeah. If you want to, have a little pity party and feel crappy, do it. Who cares? Get it over with. What you find is if you go, "Hey, I feel crappy and I hate this situation," your body goes, okay. Okay, what's next? And then you get over it faster.
Yeah.
You just face the emotion, feel it, and they go, okay, okay. Now I'm gonna go make myself some macaroni and cheese and watch some Rick and Morty and not care about any of this.
Nice. Hell yeah. So before you kind of blew up on YouTube with a couple of those viral videos, and now you have like a career kind of based off of this content, what were you doing, and like, were you happy with your life? Like how did you survive essentially?
Oh yeah, I was, life was great. I was, been a stand-up comic since '98, and I'd been getting a lot of work lately, and, things were looking really good. And then when the whole thing happened, I had, probably the best lineup of work I'd had in a long time was all gone. And instead of getting upset about it, I thought, well, I'm stuck at home. I might as well do something with myself. So I just thought, I had this character I'd been working on for a while and other ideas, and I just started making videos. Just figured, everybody else was making videos where they were mad at everything. Everybody's fighting over masks and toilet paper and all that nonsense. And I just thought, I don't want to participate in any of this. This is dumb. And so I just started making funny videos. Just started making fun of the whole thing because I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, there was part of us that were really excited because we thought it was going to be the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. That's something I've been looking forward to most of my life. And then when it didn't happen, it was like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This is another nonsensical game that we're all playing. So yeah. Just kind of wanted to breathe a little sanity.
That's so interesting.
How's that?
That's so interesting. Your whole I find your mentality so interesting. How you were saying right before the pandemic, you had such a good lineup set up for your comic schedule and whatnot, and instead of being pouty about it and allowing yourself to fall into a depression or something like that, you chose to take what you've learned from comedy and bring it somewhere else where it does work, like YouTube. And now you've been successful on YouTube and created something of it. And so like what's some like simple advice that you could give to people who maybe are stuck in a position where they fell into that depression instead of choosing your pathway of, saying, I'm going to make something of it?
Well, you go back to, I believe it was Epictetus, who said that the obstacle is the way. And that is the things that we think are holding us back, the things that we think are the barriers from keeping us from achieving what we want to. Instead of seeing those as barriers, seeing those things as opportunities. And it's like, when I was at that situation, it's like, oh, okay, I can't work. I'm stuck at home. Well, what can I do? And instead of making the obstacle, instead of, falling apart and going, oh no, woe is me, I just decided, hey, here I am. I'm stuck at home. What can I do? And I just started doing that. I was like, if anything, this is a great opportunity because now I don't have anything else to distract me and think about. I can just sit around and write, and I come up with an idea for a video, go make it. And I can share it with a lot of people all at once. So, and then as people noticed, it got bigger and bigger. And so, instead of looking at these things that you think are setbacks or obstacles or problems, really they're usually the way to get what you want. And when you get through that obstacle, it gets you to where you want even faster.
I know that a lot of startup companies start their company in the midst of depressions and recessions, because that's actually where some of the most opportunity is for like companies. And the times in our lives when we get completely knocked down is when we actually have the cleanest slate to build a new foundation of whatever it is that we want.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I said, sometimes you need the house to burn down and you lose everything for you to realize that all that trying to hold on to something you really didn't even have is what was holding you back. We always try to hold on to what we have, but when you're willing to finally just let it go, there's so much more out there waiting for you. And like I said, sometimes it takes a complete disaster to get you to see that.
Dang.
Yeah. So,
Rodney,
if you don't mind me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yep.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what's a setback that you've had that has, like what's a big setback that you've had maybe like many years ago in your life that you feel has set you up to be where you are now?
Well, I've had many opportunities that I thought were opportunities. People were offering things, and so I had one big name comic who at one point in time was going to bring me on to write for his TV show, and I was going to travel with him, and things were looking, like, okay, this is it. This is my big shot. And then he just totally ghosted me, and I never heard from the guy.
Wow.
And I had given up a bunch of other opportunities and cleared my schedule based on the promises they had made to me. And it totally messed me up because I'd affected relationships with other people that, I backed on shows. And, like I said, I'd cleared my schedule thinking, okay, this was my big shot. And then it never happened. And instead of getting better, I just thought, okay, well, lesson learned. Don't get caught up in the whole thing. If you don't get depressed when things fall apart, don't let it destroy you.
Yeah.
And just know that other opportunities are always out there, and they're always going to come along. And so you just lick your wounds and move on. Lesson learned, move on.
That sounds a lot like what the Buddha taught. That he taught non-attachment, right? Mm-hmm. He was teaching like the more that you cling on to whatever it is in your life that you love, that you want success or keeping your loved ones around, inevitably the attachment to those things is what causes you the suffering in the long run, because nothing can ever stay forever. People die, jobs get lost. It's like it's just inevitable. So training, like the Buddha was basically training us to not be attached to anything.
Oh, absolutely, because if like I said, when you set your heart upon it, and you have all these expectations, and then they're not met, you're disappointed. And then often we get the things that we do want, and we're also disappointed because, just getting things or obtaining things or achieving things don't solve your problems. They don't. And in fact, a lot of times they'll bring you even more problems. And so, it's that learning to just not be attached, not be, if you don't have that attachment, if you lose it, you really don't feel like you've lost anything because you never felt like you had it in the first place. And when you have that understanding that everything is temporary, then it's just a lot easier to deal with because you're, as the Buddha says, you're not attached.
I'm sorry, continue. I think we're glitching.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's sort of the beauty of it is the detachment is what allows you to have the connection because you enjoy it for what it is when you're in possession of it, when you do have it, when you have an interaction with it or who or whatever. You appreciate it for what it is at the moment that it is in your life.
Do you think that there's value in having some kind of attachment? Because there is kind of a thrill to having attachment to something in a way. Because I honestly, it does feel like part of life to form connections, and especially like people that you fall in love with or like parents. Like, how can you not fall so deeply into that attachment? You know what I mean?
Well,
and have to grieve that when it's gone.
Like I said, I draw the difference between attachment and connection. Because attachment means that there has to be the thing has to be present in order for you to have the full enjoyment of it. But a connection, you can have the full enjoyment of it without it always present. When you love someone, if it's an attachment, then they have to be there in order for you to enjoy the connection, enjoy them. But with a connection, you don't, you have those friends that you don't see for years, and all of a sudden you see them again, and it's like nothing ever happened. It's like no time ever happened.
Yeah.
You're just instantly right back to where you were before. That's a beautiful connection. Whereas an attachment is more of a temporary thing. That's how I view it. So connection is more of
I guess you could
more
still
of
have
acceptance and an ownership. It's really just not wanting to have an ownership over it.
Interesting. It's like allowing the depth of the connection. I mean, honestly, I think Sam and I that's happened to us. Like we were really good friends, really, really young, and then lost touch for a while. But then a few years ago, started hanging out again, and it was like, oh my gosh, like we're still like best friends, same way that we were when we were like little kids.
Yeah. That's I've got a friend.
But it's like in between.
Yeah, I've got a friend that I met back in junior high school, and we'll go years without talking to each other, and then all of a sudden we'll just reconnect and talk to each other every day for weeks, and then not see each other again for a few years, and then reconnect, and it's just sort of that lifelong bond, that lifelong connection.
Okay, so what I want to ask you is, do you find like humor to be spiritual for you in a way? Like, do you connect with something deeper through your humor, or is it, I don't know, or is there something funny about the depths of the universe? Like,
Oh yeah, I think
the
whole thing is just one really big cosmic joke, really. I think what humor does is it allows you to just kind of put things into perspective and know that regardless of how things work out, that it's all going to work out for the best. You know, it's like some of the earliest understandings of laughter that we think that it came from was that, you know, back when we were running away from wild animals and having to, you know, kill every day to survive and fight off saber-toothed tigers and stuff, that laughter came from the enjoyment of not dying during the day, you know, and that we get back to the cave and laugh about how close we came to dying. And so there's sort of this psychological experience that we have when we laugh, that when we're laughing, our body and our brain thinks, oh, we're okay, we're safe when we're laughing. And so using laughter to, you know, overcome trauma and overcome difficulties is a powerful, powerful thing. And I think it is a deeply spiritual thing, because it is something, it's one emotion that can really transform you almost instantaneously from one experience to another, and can help put things into perspective better than almost anything. It's really, it's an underutilized.
Yeah.
It's very underutilized.
It's uncontrollable in a way. It's like you're forced to be happy in a moment of laughter.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Cool.
So still on the topic of humor and comedy, but taking it a little different way. What, like, being a comic seems like a very hard thing to do, because you've got to face so many fears. You got to face rejection in front of a big crowd of people.
Oh, it's
what is that like?
It's one of the most horrifying and excruciating experiences, but it's one of the most absolutely brilliantly beautiful and amazing things. And having it be such a contrast that, yeah, it could go so poorly so quickly, but at the same time, it can be so good and so rich. And there's nothing like it. It's one of the most incredible experiences. And once you do it, it's a drug, you know, just having that opportunity to make people laugh and feel good about life and overcome their own issues. It's just, it's beautiful. It's incredible. And yeah, sure, it could be difficult, but you know, you develop a very thick skin. So when it's bad, you're still enjoying yourself, because you know, I think when you get to the point where you're not so concerned about laughter, and you're really kind of into the moment, into the presence with the audience, and that having that connection, that laughter is only just part of it. There's still more communication that's going on that's fun to play around with, and it really is the most extraordinary experience you can have performing, because you know you're in a play, you're just reciting lines, and you're just playing a part. You're really not connecting with the audience. The audience is just, you know, watching. Same with bands, or you know, it's kind of closer with music and that you still kind of have that connection with an audience. But there's just nothing like stand-up, because you're really, you know, you're putting your heart and your soul out there for the whole world to look at and judge almost immediately. And yeah, it's scary, but it's the best.
I definitely feel like there's something deeper to stand-up than people realize. Like, I just know so many comedians that are deeply spiritual people, and like that for them has been just like an intense enriching. It's like that's when they feel the most alive. And it's like, so there's something to it, that being on stage in front of a crowd just deepens your present experience. Like the lows, if you bomb, are really low and it feels really shitty, but the highs of when you are making the crowd just go crazy, it feels amazing. It's like it's in some way, like, you know, Duncan Trussell, he's a stand-up comedian who I listen to as well, and he's deep in spirituality. I know Joe Rogan's got some spirituality stuff. So I know there's just like a lot of comedians that find comedy to be, you know, like
the process of writing comedy is a very it's a huge intellectual exercise, and it really forces you to really look at yourself and really evaluate things and how you see things, and to look at things from a different perspective. And so it can be a very, very strongly spiritual experience in doing it. And then taking those things and taking that honest thoughts that you have and sharing them with the world, it can be a little daunting, but yes, it is a very, very remarkable experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so speaking on the presence that you talk about that you get from comedy, and I've seen a couple of your videos where you talk about the past, present, and future. How do you maintain presence? Like, do you meditate? I know you practice mindfulness, but like, do you meditate or do anything of that
meditation. Nature? A lot of reading of scriptures and the Tao. Just a lot of reflecting, because that's part of the whole thing. Is comedy is really searching for the truth. So I tell people, don't try and write jokes. Just write the truth, and the jokes will show up.
Mm.
And so it's this very, you're constantly just peeling away.
That's
you're constantly deconstructing everything and looking at the nuts and bolts of everything. Because your job is to go out and turn mountains into molehills and make mountains out of molehills. I mean, it's the art of exaggeration or magnification, as I like to think of it as, because you're putting a magnifying glass in the most basic things and breaking it down and getting people to see things from a different perspective.
Comedians are also some of the most like influential and convincing people's. Like, if you can make your crowd laugh in a debate, or if you're like a leader and you make your group laugh, it's like they're so much more likely to like understand what you're trying to say, be more like friendly towards your idea that you're introducing. And I know that like TED Talks, like there's a statistic that the most popular TED Talks that exist are the ones that make people laugh the most. So there's like a way that you can use comedy to like show truth in
the best way to memorize something
form to the world,
to have a strong emotional connection to it. That's why when you're in an accident, you can almost remember it in slow motion, because it's such an emotional experience. Or when when someone dies, you remember that exact moment when you hear about it. Because it's a strong emotional connection. Well, what they find is that when you connect laughter with learning, you learn it better, because laughter is such a strong and powerful emotion that your brain, because of the serotonin and the dopamine releases, you feel really good, you feel really confident, and that knowledge just makes more sense. It's just more understandable to you and easier to remember. And so it makes sense that when you speak or when you teach and you do it with laughter, it's just a better experience for everybody, and they don't feel like they're learning, but they are. And so making it more entertaining and interesting is just it's an amazing thing. I wish TED Talks would let me do one.
Hey, if TED Talk listens to this podcast, maybe they'll let you have a spot.
They totally will.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of people underestimate how much work is put into comedy, and all the effects that it has. Because I mean, we've just scratched the surface with what we've talked about so far. But I feel like people watch the top comedians and just assume that every comedian is like this, and that even those comedians are always funny, but they forget that there's a lot of preparation and there's a lot of truth seeking that goes into it, like you said. Because I think that's just something that
absolutely
just gets missed.
Our job is to make it look easy and effortless. And so when you're really good at it, people just think you just made it up, that you're just up there just shoot from the hip.
That's true.
And it's like, no, there's an enormous amount of preparation. There's an enormous amount of writing and rewriting and getting it all to work perfectly. And people don't see that part of it. they're usually just introduced to it when it's at its perfect state. They don't see all the bombing and failures in the little clubs and bars where you're testing stuff out and it's not working. They don't see all that stuff. They don't see all the hard work that you put into it. They just see the final product most of the time. So yeah, it's quite a process. And even those who you think that they're improving, that they're just coming up with it. No, they're presenting it like they're doing it that way, but there's enormous preparation to put it all together. Yeah.
Wow. I never knew. I mean, I knew that you guys like wrote jokes, but I did think it definitely, you guys do a really good job of making it feel.
And you do have those moments. Yeah,
for sure.
You certainly have those moments. You have those times where you're on stage and something just hits you, and you have those spontaneous moments. But you still have to have, the basic groundwork set in place. Because when you get up there, if you're performing a play, it's all written out for you. You know exactly what to say. You know what directions everything's going. But when it's just you, it's an undaunting task because you're the writer, you're the director, you're the producer, you're everything. It's all you, and it's a whole different. It's there's no safety net. It's you either succeed or fail horribly.
But because it's just you throughout the whole thing, you get complete creative control. So you can say and do things that you would never be able to say or do on a TV show or something.
It's Bill Burr.
Yeah, that's true.
If you watch him, when he's acting, he's playing a part. He's very, focused on what he's doing. But then you watch the stand-up or listen to his podcast or something. Man, he's just, he just doesn't hold back and just lets it go. And it's a brilliant thing to watch.
Yeah, it is.
So true.
Yeah. So speaking of crafts, have you ever been a part of something, job or business-wise you weren't in creative control?
That's probably the frustrating thing, is when you're a creative person and you're in a situation where you can't be creative. That's the worst. Because I've done a lot of construction. I was a carpenter for many years and built houses and did roofing, and there you're just following the plan, and there's not a lot of room for creativity. Although I still enjoyed entertaining everybody while I was doing it, so I tried to bring some creativity into it, but it's definitely being on your own and doing your own thing. There's really nothing like it.
Yeah, and so like, what kind of advice do you have? Like, what
advice?
Go ahead.
What I give is, if you're stuck in a job where you're not doing what you want to do and being what you want to be, you can still find ways to use your creativity anyway. Or at least just try to find a creative outlet beyond it, and allow that your job is just a means to an end, that your job is allowing you to get the money to do what you really want to do. So that way you're not, you don't feel like you're stuck. Instead of feeling like you're stuck, just think of it as, hey, this is part of the process that's going to get me where I want to go. Doing this job I don't like doing, what it's giving you is the money to pursue the other opportunities. So just make it part of the process, and then it's not so depressing. I guess it's the best way to say it.
That's a good way of putting it.
Okay. I'm definitely in a situation right now. I mean, I'm working as a patient care tech, basically a nurse's aide in a hospital, cleaning up people's pee and poop. And it's really not enjoyable at all.
Yeah.
But, I got to survive. So that's what I'm doing. But in the meantime, like I have a podcast like this, and I have a YouTube channel. It's like, I think it's so important to like have something, so it feels like you're not just completely alone and like you have to
Yes.
just be doing your job to survive, that there's hope for something else and you can put those juices
I mean, you
into
should appreciate
something,
the fact,
you know?
every time,
Yeah.
you're cleaning up somebody's mess. If it wasn't for those messes, you wouldn't have a job. Those messes is what giving you the opportunity to make the money so you can, have your podcast. So next time you're cleaning up somebody's poop, appreciate it. Go, man, I'm glad that I get to do this.
Point. You're right. I mean, it's a little difficult when you're almost vomiting over some smells, but you're getting.
Appreciate the vomit.
But I definitely see what you're saying, because I mean, you're right. I mean, their disgusting bowel movement is literally keeping
paying the bills.
food in my plate. So, but I'd like to switch gears here, actually, and ask you about enlightenment. And if you like, what do you think about? Do you think enlightenment exists? Have you experienced a spiritual awakening? Like, what's going on? What do you think about all that?
Yeah,
I think often enlightenment stuff.
It gets confused for other things. But I mean, true enlightenment really is, if it's something that happens to you that changes the way you see the world, and it enriches the way you see the world, and makes you a better person, and makes you more connected with the people around you and with your circumstance, and brings you greater joy and understanding. That's a powerful thing. It's real enlightenment. But just, reading a couple memes and listening to some drum music and think, oh, now I'm enlightened and woke. It's not that simple, But I don't want to, but at the same time, I don't want to, degrade anyone else's experience. But I know for myself, it's not something that just is a one and done sort of thing. Enlightenment is something that you can continuously experience and continuously, because you have, a lot of times we have to relearn lessons. And most of the time we have to, relearn something that
I've definitely experienced that as well. That I think that the thing about enlightenment is that it is kind of an ongoing process of many different insights and profound experiences and perspective shifts. At least in my case, I've had a couple experiences where it's like, holy fuck, I've never seen the world like this, and then you have a totally different mindset after you have an experience like that. But I think it's not just you're enlightened now. Oh, now you're God. It's
an ongoing process, and I think the biggest part is when you just finally find yourself open to it. When you finally open your mind and you stop judging things and you just start looking to understand and to learn and to grow and just take it all in. It's just it's a very enriching experience and enjoyable experience. And it can be scary, letting go of things that you thought you believed. When you let go of those things, that can be a very liberating experience and very scary. So,
yeah, I feel like there's so many little things in our lives that really we just miss every day, and things that are literally right in front of us. And I think once you can learn to look past the mental blocks that we all have in ourselves, that it can really open things up and get you further in that process. And it's not it's not necessarily about getting further, but it's about seeing more, I suppose.
It's
or
right.
less,
it's right in front of you. The stuff I feel like is things that you would see normally in your day, and then after you have an experience of enlightenment or basically just having a new insight or paradigm shift, it's like, oh my gosh, that thing has been in front of me this whole time, but now I see it for what it is in this moment, which is cool.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
And just
Yeah,
knowing
it's
that
all out there,
there's
and
all that out there.
there's more out there than we can even begin to
Sorry,
comprehend,
continue.
and yet we close ourselves off to those experiences and those things because we think that what we have now is all that reality is.
What helps?
What helps,
Yeah.
I go back
What
to
helps you
Descartes.
keep that open
Descartes,
mind?
he did the thought experiment where he just started doubting everything. It's like, what if everything that I'm experiencing isn't real? And he eventually goes back, and this is where we get the idea of I think, therefore I am. Because he finally gets down to the point where he's not sure of anything. In fact, the only thing he's sure of is that a doubt is taking place. That he's doubting his own thoughts, he's doubting his own reality. And the only thing he can be sure of is that there's doubt taking place.
Wow.
And then he says, okay, so if there's doubt, well, then someone must be doubting. So that doubter must be me. And that's where we get the idea. He never really said, I think, therefore I am. He actually said, I doubt, therefore I must be.
Wow.
Because in order for there to be a doubt, there must be somebody doubting. And it's me doubting.
Interesting.
And so from there, he's able to kind of go back and kind of reconstruct reality.
It reminds me of like the idea that you hear like, that Antarctica exists. You've seen it on a map. You've seen pictures of it, but you've never been there, so you can't actually know for a fact that it exists. It's really just an idea in your mind, and it only becomes real once you're experiencing it in the present now. It's like the idea that my mom exists, she doesn't actually really exist until I experience her existence in front of me.
And when you start applying that to everything that you know,
that's true.
History, science, I mean, we're starting to understand that most of the things that we were taught in school are complete garbage, completely made up nonsense. And when you go back and say, oh, wow, most everything I learned was garbage, was nonsense. It was
quite literally, yeah.
Alternative reality created by somebody who wanted me to think something else. And when you're able to have that moment, when you have that moment of where you're just literally just doubting everything, you see things and you start to open yourself up to different possibilities, and it's really quite an enlightening experience.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I know John Rockefeller, he donated like billions of dollars in today's currency, like what it would be worth today, to the education system. And like his philosophy was like, I don't want a country of thinkers, I want a country of workers. So like the education system is built on keeping people to be the workers.
Yes,
like, I mean, society's a pyramid scheme, really, because not everybody can be the millionaire, right? So you just gotta like, if you can break out of that mindset, I don't know, like the worker class, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying like this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it's been built by the top.
The school
for the bottom
system
is
the most inefficient way to learn. And the only thing they're really indoctrinating you to believe and understanding is show up, shut up, and do what you're told. I mean, they don't teach critical thinking. They don't teach logic.
Yeah.
They don't teach creativity. They don't encourage creativity. They don't teach you how to use the financial system to your benefit. They don't teach you things that will really actually benefit you in the life. Instead, what they do is they overload you with a bunch of information, make it feel like you're not that smart, and so you should just listen to to other people who are smarter than you and do what they tell you to do, and just go along and don't cause any friction, because this is the way the system is, and if you do something different, you're going to screw it all up for everybody. And when you finally break free, and I think that's one thing I appreciate about the younger generation, I think you're all starting to figure that out a lot faster than the rest of us did. You're coming into an understanding of it at a younger age. Most of us, it took a while for this other generations to really, really see it. My generation, I think we caught on pretty quick, quicker than the ones ahead of us. And I think your other generations. The same thing. You're catching on
Yeah.
quicker that, hey, this is all nonsense and made up. This is all, the whole world is a fairy tale.
Yeah, and the system just produces more
Yep.
people who produce more people to be part of that system. And I think that's what makes it so hard to break out of the system, because we've been trained our whole lives that this is what it is and this is how you do things. And instead of thinking for ourselves and realizing that,
Mhm.
we don't have to do this. We can do what we want to do, pretty much.
I think it's also important to realize that like teachers and like principals of these schools, like it's not some giant conspiracy theory where they like are trying to keep you to think that you're stupid and that you should just listen to them. Like, no, they're
Absolutely.
just
they're
as
just as
oblivious
much part
as
of
the
the
students
system.
are. And
Yep.
in that way, because there's
Yeah, they're
the
just
same
as
level
much
of
as
oblivious.
victims to the system as the students are. Absolutely. Because it's buying into that system. It's, shut up, do what you're told. The
Mhm.
smart ones are going to college. Everybody else, you're going to, work at McDonald's and all that stuff. And uh, but they need, they want to train. They want the teachers to be trained in their system so that they are fully believers in that system. And that's what they need. So that's how it's all geared. But when you
Right.
start breaking
Yeah.
out of it, it was funny. I was watching something the other day where they said that they did an experiment with elementary age school kids, and they were taking them out and doing physical projects outdoors. They would take them out and do like ropes courses, and they'd have set up a thing where they had a challenge and all this, for the whole group to do. And what they found is that the kids who were the class clowns and the biggest goof-offs in class, who were considered the biggest problems, they were the leaders. They were the ones that got everybody working together and motivated them, and were the best and most equipped to deal with the different scenarios and different difficulties that they were up against, and the obstacles and how to overcome them. And I thought that was brilliant, because that's really, the leaders are the ones who don't look at it the way everybody else does. They're the ones who are sitting back and going, "Hey, there's a better way to do this."
Mm-hmm.
And yet our school system is designed to take those people and make them the problem.
Yeah, that makes sense, because definitely, because those people are going to be naturally more retaliatory, more independent. They have their own ideas, and so like in a classroom setting, you can't just be aggressive to the teacher. So like the biggest form of independence that you can exert is by, I don't know, making your classmates laugh, being ridiculous, being silly, because what else can you really do in that situation?
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's crazy.
I never thought about that, because I feel like I was that kid who, was kind of retaliatory and wanted to joke around and whatnot, nonstop, and get on the teacher's nerves. But I never thought about it that way. But I think that by doing that, it really has helped me become the person I am now. I still like to joke around a lot, but I can also have a side of me that understands or tries to understand what life is about, and I never quite realized how that may have helped me, but that's interesting to hear about that experiment that you had there. Huh.
I mean, I think everyone's got kind of a natural edge of like that independence and humor that everyone's got a little bit of it, their own ideas and creativity, right?
And
that's it's really kind of tragic in a way.
To put away those things and to not think that way, and that it's silly to be like that, and it's like nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, it's the silly goof-offs. Those are the ones who make the changes. Those are the ones who are breaking the boundaries and creating a better situation for everybody.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like to think of life as like this, just like tanglement of wires, and you just have to start trying to, untangle the wires and find each end, and I feel like when you start to untangle them, you realize more and more, and then you start to untangle more and more wires, and then you realize there's like an infinite amount of wires to untangle. You know,
but then you can make a couple cool connections, right? A couple wire changes can really make the difference. Of I don't know, it can really make.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one or two idea can change a lot. So they say the pen is mightier than the sword, because one great idea can change everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of pens, do you journal?
I write quite a bit. I'm working on a couple books that I hope to have released within the next year or two.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.